Raj is a British word for rule. Thus, the British Raj is the British rule of India. The British Raj only comprised of 90 years of British control over India, but that period was still instrumental to India's modern development. When the British East India Company was dealt a heavy military blow in 1858, the Government of India Act transferred its power to British rule to form the India Office. And so, India became a royal possession, beginning to direct British rule over the subcontinent. Although the British returned for the wealth, they fortified India's government and infrastructure, helping in Alf India and giving enough strength as a modern country filled with diversity. Many of modern India's characteristics and struggles emanated from the British Raj. Let's look at this period rules at British rule to see how it affected modern India and why it still impacts the world today. How did the British first arrive in India? Although the British Raj was not established until 1858, the British were in India long before that. In the 15th century, the European nations were competing for monopolies in the East, including countries like China and India. There was a standing trade route, but exporters saw a way to access the Indian Ocean. They knew sailing to India would be much cost effective, but it was still dangerous and expensive. They needed help. So in 1599, explorers, merchants, and artists gathered together and formed the British East India Company and asked the tune for a charter. She granted in 1600, and the British India Company was born. They immediately set about breaking the Portuguese monopoly, but they did not have much luck until in 1620. The Portuguese actively opposed the British presence in the East Indies. The British quickly realized that they need to defend the Portuguese if they want to trade their network to grow. They were already fighting over trades in East Persia, so the fight in East Indies grew naturally out of that animosity. So, in truth, the British East India Company had its own army, which it used to fight the Portuguese and the local Mughal Empire. They slowly advanced across the subcontinent, taking cities and building forts to protect their interests. By 1720, the company brought in 50% of English imports, which bolstered the economy and allowed Britain to start the Industrial Revolution. The British East India Company continued to grow, taking over French territories. By 1802, they held an almost complete monopoly on trade out of India. The British used this power to grow their economy and gain control over the area. In turn, encouraged their soldiers and merchants to learn Indian culture and languages. By 1813, the British India Company determined to modernize India by bringing in British and Christian values. Although it may sound great that the British supported schooling and provided widows from being burnt to death after their husbands died, they primarily focused on modernizations that improved the country. Some of these updates included implementing a postal service, adding electricity, and building railroads. At first, as these services were not available to everyone, they were limited to businesses connected to the British India Company. But they soon became available for all. Even though the British East India Company brought trading opportunities and modernization back to India, they also met with much pushback from the people there. The British wanted to expand the country, and they brought political power and increased the domain to control of the land. By 1818, the company completely controlled India, maintaining that power for 3 decades, while also taking over French and Dutch colonies. However, when the British began pushing Christianity onto the people revolted, especially the Indian soldiers. The company did not respect or accommodate their Hindu and Islamic beliefs. There was a mutiny and growing distrust between the British and the Indian people. Although the British East India Company spurred the British economy into the modern age, it also alienated the subcontinent, eventually leading to its downfall. Why did the British Raj form? The British East India Company lost most of its power in 1857 after a substantial rebellion that left the Indian people victorious. However, Britain was not ready to relinquish control. It decided to abolish the company and transfer the rule of act to the Queen Victoria, which was given compliance in August 1858. This act stated that Raj started British Raj, but did not have direct control over the Indian subcontinent. India as we know it today. Instead, the British Raj introduced most of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, but Britain did not directly rule all of it. There were both princely states, there were direct rule, and 175 princely states, which local leaders led under the rule and supervision. Queen Victoria became the Empress of India in 1857, but the East India Company had been. Although the people of India were now British subjects, they were not attempted to make India. They were not attempted to make Indian Christianity. Like Western cultures, it even investigated what the company had done wrong. They found the company did not communicate with the local people, pushing them to free market on India, will force ordinary people into unhealthy relationships with rulers and merchants. Thus, that was the main reasons for the British Raj, was to save the Indian culture and traditions. At least that was one of the main reasons espoused by Britain. So many people from Britain did explore Indian culture and history and were excited to share with the world, saving ancient texts for us to enjoy today. Of course, the British Raj was interested in much more than culture. It also played a vital role in organizing the Indian government and social hierarchy. This included creating a middle class to work in the government. The company and British Raj used a simple dual government, with one government based in London and the other in Calcutta. But the Governor General, appointed by the British monarchy in India, had a different relationship with the Executive Council. Before, Governor General had to consult them over very political tasks. After the Raj was in place, the council was divided into different departments. Each member focused on a specific routine task or issue. The Governor General only needed to work on the important problems now, allowing the whole government to function more efficiently. When they needed new laws, the Executive Council expanded to become the Legislative Council, which had 12 new members for 2 years. 6 of them from Britain, and the other was 6 local people who served as advisors. Although the Indian people in the council were not allowed to vote, they still had an important role in helping manage public opinion and assuage concerns about the government. The Indian legislature also made laws that impacted everyone living in the British Raj. The legislature was bicameral, having the 2 branches, and the Governor General was the head of the upper house. All these changes in the government allowed the local people to learn about self-governance while continuing their desire for freedom. The British did more than change the Indian culture and preserve their culture. They also made dramatic changes in the Indian education system. The British East India Company had opened a few universities in major cities, but they also destroyed the traditional Indian schooling system. Before the company took over, the locals had run the villages' schools, taught literacy and other British skills. These local schools collapsed when the company took over the land. Under the British Raj, one of the primary dedicated to the education in India was Thomas Macaulay. He was less supportive of traditional culture than other leaders. He set up an English-style education system, complete with teaching the English language instead of local languages. The British Raj opened almost 200 universities by 1911, and 36,000 students who enrolled every year went on to serve the government in administrative or legal help. The education system created a new middle class, well-educated one, if you may say. Still, citizens inhabited a middle ground between India and British cultures. The education system under British Raj continues to be a success of views debate today, especially as the people try to sort to the impacts of colonialism and British influence. The British Raj also focused on investing in infrastructure. Agriculturally, they built canals and irrigation systems, but people were planting crops for export instead of building their own food supplies. These crops included coffee, tea, cotton, sugarcane, and opium. Although the British Raj did increase its production and created growing national GDP, this choice is also led to the severe famine and general discontent. The British also built a railway system in India, which quickly became famous for its quality and size. Its construction began under the East India Company. When the British Raj took over, they continued the project and hired local companies. The railroad suffered and supported the growing economy, but it quickly disrespected during the World War. The British were focused elsewhere and maintenance halted on the infrastructure. It demonstrated that although Britain claimed it wanted to support the cultures and traditions of the Indian subcontinent, the actual progress needed independence. How did the British Raj end? Much like the British East India Company, the British Raj ended with a revolution. Unease had been going for a while. When World War II hit, India supported the Allies, but the fight for independence continued. The people soon realized that Britain did not want to give India freedom, and Gandhi decided it was time to do something more. He started to quit India, a non-violent movement intended to gain their independence. The British tried to stop the movement by arresting people, but it only stirred the people up more. Soon there were protests and attacks on British buildings across the subcontinent. Not everyone maintained the non-violent approach. Some dropped their university classes and refused to pay taxes, while others blew up bridges and attacked railway stations. Some even attacked European citizens, and the violence prompted the British government to retaliate with violence. The action was so brutal that it drove the Quit India movement underground. Still, the desire for freedom was too deeply lodged in the people's mindset to be stopped entirely. Protests erupted again in 1943 when Gandhi began his hunger strike in jail. In these protests, spread worldwide. British criticized the British Raj and demanded Gandhi's release. He was released in May 1944 and again devoted himself to gaining the Indian freedom. By 1945, everyone could see that all of India wanted freedom, not just one movement or political party. When Kalman Attlee became the next British Prime Minister, he immediately began working to transfer political power entirely to India. The country was split into India and Pakistan to ease religious conflicts, and in 1947, India finally had its freedom. The British Raj seized, but it left behind the consequences that the Indian people are still working through today. Even after becoming independent, the people chose to keep many British institutions, like the universities, democracy, and civil services. Although they gained their freedom, India's struggle was for several years. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on all the notifications. And I will see you in the next video. And I really hope that you had an amazing day. Bye!